Ah, yes. Monday edition of Schein Time. Rory goes back-to-back at the Masters. It was a historic and dramatic thing of beauty. The NBA playoffs are set, and it's a combo of bad news and no excuse for the Knicks. And New York, the Yankees and Mets can't win. But it's the lack of fundamentals that makes you want to explode. Schein Time starts right now.
Don't stop. Keep it coming, baby. Don't stop.
It took me 10 years to win at my fifth major, and then my sixth one's come pretty soon after it. So yeah, I'm not putting a number on it, but I certainly don't want to stop here.
Rory, are you kidding me? Back to back. That was all sorts of awesome. And I think it's important to kind of flash back to 1 year ago before the Masters when we were talking about the proverbial monkey on the back for Rory McIlroy, who needed that green jacket, the elusive green jacket for the career Grand Slam. And frankly, it was at a stage where you had to wonder aloud, going into the Masters in 2025, would it ever happen? Was Rory physically, mentally, emotionally capable of winning at Augusta? Well, last year wins in a playoff, and then to win and hold on Sunday in a thrilling, iconic, unbelievable, compelling Sunday at Augusta on CBS yesterday, that was just absolutely next level. And you stop and think about what transpired, right? On Friday, it was absolutely iconic. Then his round on Saturday was ironic. And then you look at McIlroy dealing with all sorts of adversity, and to hold off Scottie Scheffler and to win the Masters. There was a point on Sunday, and this is what you live for, the final round at Augusta, and there's no cell phones, and you see Rory smile and his joy and jubilation. You stop and you think about everything that transpires at Augusta, right? And yesterday, we are talking about 6 golfers within 2 strokes on the final day in the final round. I mean, if you don't get the chills, check your pulse. That is why you absolutely love the Masters and why that course and the history and everything that goes into it, it just means a little bit more. You always want all the majors, right? You want to stockpile as many wins as possible. But to have that kind of theater and drama at Augusta, it doesn't get much better. And listen, there was a moment in time yesterday where I thought that Westchester, New York native Cam Young was going to win. There was a moment in time you thought that Rose was going to bloom. There was a moment in time where you thought my pick, Scottie Scheffler, was going to find a way to get it done. How about Scheffler, in essence? He pitched the perfect game on Saturday and Sunday. One of the best weekends in the history of Augusta. Didn't have a bogey the entire weekend. And if you're a fan of Scottie Scheffler, or if you bet on Scheffler to win, you'll be thinking about that putt that I still can't believe ultimately didn't go in on 17. It was right there, and Scheffler just couldn't get it to drop. I mean, it was a perfect shot. The golf gods were not shining on Scottie. But then you take a look at this, and Rory, the green machine, what a perfect back page for the New York Post. I mean, you start thinking about it. Back-to-back champions over the years, and it's just absolutely incredible. I mean, at the Masters, there's only been 4. And you look at Rory, 2025, 2026. You look at Tiger, hasn't been done since 2001, 2002. Nick Faldo and Jack. I mean, that's the list. And you look at Rory here by the numbers, and, it's kind of iconic when you look at the 15th golfer with 6 or more major wins. And you take a look at what he was able to do, and he admitted to Jim Nantz in Butler Cabin, and after he finished on 18 yesterday, yeah, he was scoreboard watching, and why wouldn't you? And we talked about it this week here on Schein Time, where, you take a look at everything going on with Rory, and, he won at Augusta last year, and, obviously that was a big deal, and that was a thing, and then he said maybe that relaxes him, but then it's going to be, okay, here's the quest to go out and repeat, and you wondered how that would help him or hurt him if, in fact, that carrot being dangled, the fact that he didn't need that monkey to get the monkey off the back, if that would be a thing. And then you saw, not only was he scoreboard watching, That shot at 12 and the shot at 13, and he said this to Nance after, and Jim Nance is just superb. Great question, great answer. The approach at 12, which has been for all these golfers such a house of horrors, I mean, absolutely positively incredible. And of course, you had the drama on 18, hooked the 8-iron over the trees into the bunker and punched it out at 12 feet. And then two-putted a bogey to ultimately get another green jacket. It was just absolutely incredible. And you think about the drama, you think about how incredible it was. And Rory kind of has that everyman persona, right? He's not a perfect human. Obviously, you think about his path. You think about, they were showing yesterday, his in Ireland, everyone at the Hollywood Golf Club going nuts and having a pint, and he's excited. His daughter, Poppy, that was unbelievable. Her smile. His wife, his parents were there. What an unbelievable moment. They weren't there last time around, so obviously having them there was kind of incredible. That scream of joy and jubilation. And then that walk, right? After he raises his arms and he walks back to do the interview with Jim Nance, and no one has a cell phone, no cell phones at Augusta, so it's just an old school, pure moment of joy and jubilation. Part of what separates Augusta and the Masters from anything else, man. Rory, hallelujah. I couldn't get enough of this storyline, the real nature of McIlroy, the emotion, the way he was able to dominate Friday, survive Saturday, and the rest of the field and his own flubs and faux pas on Sunday. Man, vintage McIlroy, I couldn't be happier, and what a terrific 2026 Masters in Augusta. Meanwhile, the NBA playoff picture is set, and prior to the dust settling, Knicks coach Mike Brown was asked about potentially matching up with the Atlanta Hawks in the first round.
They were good. Atlanta's a good team. They're a good team. Everybody's good.
Well, everyone's good, but unfortunately for the Knicks, the Hawks are better than the Toronto Raptors. And listen, this is as unlucky and as unfortunate a draw. We can go back to, what happened with Orlando and Boston last night, all the garbage and nonsense. And this is what you call unfortunate if you are a Knicks fan. And listen, we talked about it last week, so I'm not going to sugarcoat or change my tune. And there are a couple of important things that are in play here in terms of takes and reality. Obviously, the Knicks would have preferred to face the Toronto Raptors. They would have swept Toronto. I'm on record saying that. The Atlanta Hawks were the one team I did not want to face as a Knicks fan. Now, the Knicks should be able to beat Atlanta. All can be true. The Knicks this past week were showing you the highlights with a point and a purpose. The Knicks should be able to beat the Atlanta Hawks. I believe this will be a 6-game series. We'll certainly flesh out all our picks and predictions over the course of the week, but the early lean is Knicks in 6. Atlanta, terrific team. Great chemistry. They've played their best in this calendar year. They've been specifically great since they got rid of Trae Young, who is a disaster to this basketball team. And I think the Hawks are an excellent squad. Quinn Snyder's done a great job. Alexander Walker's been great. Johnson's been great. But as long as Katz and Brunson play like they did in Atlanta, play like they did against Boston, play like they did going up against the Raptors at Madison Square Garden this past Friday night, the Knicks will absolutely win this series. And here's the deal when you look at it from a New York perspective. And I feel compelled to stress this today. The New York Knicks, at the end of the day, their floor is to lose in the first round. Their ceiling is to win a championship. And I don't think that that's crazy when you start taking a look at the way the Knicks have played this year. Now, bare bones minimum for this season to be a success, Knicks have to play in the Eastern Conference Finals. Mike Brown had a better regular season this year than Tom Thibodeau. That has to count for something. You haven't had the championship vibes with the New York Knicks since, this past week. That obviously matters when you look at those aforementioned games against Atlanta and Boston and Toronto. But when you look at New York for this postseason, Atlanta is certainly together and confident, and I think the Hawks, if they could steal game one from New York Saturday night, Madison Square Garden, then it's going to be a longer, more complicated series. I don't think, and I've been to Madison Square Garden for the first game for the Cleveland series, the Phillies series, the Detroit series last year, first game for the last 3 years in the postseason, and the joint was jumping. I don't get the sense it's going to be like that because I think there's a lot of nervous energy around the Knicks right now, and I think that on Saturday it's a feeling of expectation. Okay, we're nervous, but Knicks should be able to handle business. I think that it's all incumbent upon the Knicks and they're an excellent fourth quarter team. Fantastic when it comes to playing their best when it matters the most. And I think New York will absolutely win this series. Look, I'm going to shoot my shot here. I think the Knicks are going to beat Boston. I think the Knicks are going to play in the Eastern Conference Finals. I think the Knicks will have a great opportunity to go to the NBA Finals. I firmly believe that. And it's really about New York. And I loved what I saw from this team. Now, again, it just sucks for New York that, the Knicks have the Hawks in the first round. But I really think it's bigger than the opponent. It's all self-induced. It's about getting playoff bridges that we saw a year ago. And OG Anunoby as a terrific defensive player. And Mike Brown, unlike Tibbs last year, and I love Tibbs, making sure that he gets his role players and his bench involved. And I'm pretty sure that he will. So, listen, I wanted to get Toronto in the worst possible way. I think, if anything, we showed you the graphic with the matchups. I think Cleveland has a terrific draw. I think the Raptors are not very good. Give them credit. They overachieved. I remember I told you last week I would have picked Atlanta to beat the Cleveland Cavaliers. I think Cavs got an unbelievable break. The Knicks did not. But when I look at this bracket on the Eastern side, I see it's all there for the Knicks. I really do. Jason Tatum is back. Boston's the favorite in Vegas. Cade Cunningham is back. I respect the hell out of the Pistons, who, if they got that foul call right, sake of fairness, I love the Knicks. Tim Hardaway last year, that could have changed a lot of different things. But listen, New York took advantage of that bad call, and here we are. But there's no excuse. I don't care that the Knicks got hosed. I don't care that Atlanta is better when it's all said and done than Toronto. This is all about Cat, all about Brunson, all about Leon Rose, who's been fantastic. He brought in Mike Brown, his choice, his guy. He got rid of Thibodeau. It's go time. So I think the Knicks will beat Atlanta. I don't think it'll be as easy as it would have been, could have been, should have been if Toronto would have been the opponent. That would have been, just frankly, a very easy series. I think we're on a collision course with Boston and New York for the second round. And I think the Knicks can and will beat the Boston Celtics, who made a big deal of how New York played last Thursday against Boston. And let's be honest here, that's not only my prediction, that is the expectation from the owner, from the general manager, from all the Knicks fans. Out west, LeBron's Lakers got the 4 seed. They're going to take on KD and the 5 seed Rockets. Houston coach Ime Udoka talked about facing a Luka-lacking Los Angeles team.
For us, obviously it's fresh that we lost 2 games to them recently, and then kind of flipped the switch since then. Had a really good game against them on Christmas, and obviously know they're injured, but quality players across the board. You saw that with Minnesota that had guys out or whatever the case may be. It's still the NBA, and they have some really great players there, and so we'll have our hands full.
So Ime Udoka is playing it the right way because, Lakers are the higher seed, and the Lakers obviously will have home court. I give the LA Lakers a 0% chance of beating the Houston Rockets. And I'm not saying that as a hot take. I'm not throwing shade. I think it's pretty well documented here on Schein Time for a long time. I thought the Lakers were going to the Western Conference Finals. That all changed when obviously Luka and Austin Reeves got hurt. Now, Shams Charania, our good friend over at ESPN, did report today Lakers are holding out some kind of hope that Doncic could be back later in the first round. But I don't think this is going to be a long series. I think there's a real shot, and Vegas right now lists the Rockets, minus 750 to win. I think there's a real shot that this is a 4-game sweep and the Lakers don't get a dub. Now, I do feel happy for the Lakers fans, and, you guys have been very interactive with me on social media. The fact that you guys finished hot, the way LeBron James played, that was terrific. That was tremendous, and obviously there's a lot of love and good vibes and feel for that when you look at it from a Laker fan perspective, and J.J. Redick got his team to play hard down the stretch. And, I think it's important to appreciate James versus Durant in the playoffs. Maybe probably for the final time when you consider, obviously, all the moments that they've had going up against each other, and two of the better players in the history of the NBA. But I would be stunned here, absolutely stunned, if we saw Los Angeles even win a game, let alone win this series. I think the LA Lakers have a 0% chance of advancing this postseason, which sucks because I thought they were for real until, obviously, the injuries. Non-playoff NBA news now. Buck star Giannis Antetokounmpo was asked a question that didn't have to do with whether or not he's going to be in Milwaukee next year. Instead, he had to react to the news that Doc Rivers definitely won't be.
It's great working with him, but I haven't heard something like that, but I got to go call him. I got to go see if that's true.
And is it a shame that it hasn't, all the talent you guys have, it hasn't worked out, the way you guys had planned?
Yeah, it's definitely not a shame. I won't say shame. I'm not ashamed of anything, but definitely it's bad, man. It's definitely not how we wanted our season to be.
Bigots, Doc Rivers. I mean, how was Doc Rivers even appointed as the head coach in Milwaukee in the first place? Remember, Griffin replaced the sock puppet, Mike Budenholzer. I know Budenholzer won a championship, but, he had the charisma and the sideline presence of a sock puppet. And they brought in Griffin, and Giannis didn't like him. So here's Doc Rivers, which, as I first guessed years ago, was the dumbest idea in the history of ideas. Mainly because Doc Rivers is the most overrated coach in professional sports in North America in the last 40 years. Doc Rivers is, frankly, a punchline. He is a running joke in NBA circles. When you consider the fact that Doc Rivers has the most 3-1 blown leads in the history of the postseason. He also has the most blown leads of 3-2. He also has just awful blown leads up to nothing. And you're looking for reasons of how to unite the country nowadays. Let me tell you how. Talk about Doc Rivers being overrated. Even a Boston sports fan will be the first to tell you that Tom Thibodeau was a defensive coordinator the year they won a championship, and he should have won more championships with the gobs of Hall of Famers and legends that he had in Boston. He blew a monster lead, a 3-1 lead, when he was coaching Orlando. He blew a lead when he was coaching the LA Clippers. 2015, if you remember Lob City, that team, it was an embarrassment what happened in 2015. An embarrassment what happened going up against Houston. They had Chris Paul, they had Blake Griffin, and then you remember what happened in 2020 in the bubble, where they had Denver and they blew that as well. Then he goes to Philly, and the Atlanta series could have maximized the talent, Ben Simmons. The whole thing was a joke. And now he goes to Milwaukee and presides over this epic disaster and failure. And I can't think of a more overrated coach in the history of sports. Seriously. And I put that on Twitter last night. Tweet blows up. I've got some people responding, well, what about Mike D'Antoni? Mike D'Antoni, everyone knows Mike D'Antoni is what he is. He's not even rated. And before you say, well, hold on, Doc Rivers is not rated. Doc Rivers is going into the Hall of Fame. These dopes put him in the Hall of Fame because he has media friends. How could you look at Doc Rivers and say, that guy is a Hall of Famer? Go back to that board, guys. Look at his playoff record. 114 and 112. He is a classic compiler. What are we talking about here? How did Doc Rivers get the Milwaukee job and the Boston job and the Orlando job and the Clipper job and the Philly job in the first place? That is amateur hour. My goodness. Doc Rivers, the fact that he kept getting these jobs and every single time, this is going to end poorly. There's no way he's going to win. They're going to have a lead in the playoffs, and they're going to blow it. And not only bad losses, soul-sucking losses, that a Philly fan, a Clipper fan, will never, ever forget or forgive Doc Rivers, the most overrated coach in the history of sports. Now, of course, from Milwaukee, there is a bigger picture. I played that clip of Giannis Antetokounmpo. He clearly hates Doc Rivers. Now, is this a Hail Mary? Because at the end of the day, they want to find a way that they could keep somebody like Giannis Antetokounmpo in Milwaukee. I don't think that they're going to be able to do it. I think the ship already sailed on that. And I hate to say it, just so fresh after a season ends, but look, Giannis is going to play for the Lakers or the Knicks or the Golden State Warriors next year. And if he doesn't play for one of those teams, I would be surprised. And, you analyze what happened with Giannis, right? Doc Rivers wasted and ruined the prime years for Giannis Antetokounmpo. Just absolutely torpedoed them. And if you really want to go bigger picture and say the Bucks ruined it, right? Bucks ownership, Bucks management, that's fine. It's like, I don't blame you, I blame the guy who hired you, right? We could go in that direction too. But Doc Rivers is as bad and as overrated as it gets. I don't know how this guy keeps getting jobs. I had to laugh when you saw him get fired last night. And I love the fact, and this might be a little inside baseball, but it's worthy here. My guy Shams Charania broke the story. This after Doc Rivers was throwing shade at my guy Shams for not, being credible with reports and stories, which Shams is batting 1,000, and Shams is phenomenal. So the fact that Shams got to stick the proverbial knife into Doc Rivers, final time that he would ever get fired, because no one's going to hire him again. And what I don't want to hear, please, for the great people of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, you're going to keep Doc Rivers around as a consultant? Consult what? How to choke in the postseason? How to underachieve? How to ruin locker rooms? What could he possibly consult on? Amateur Hour. We move to baseball, where today we're debuting a new segment called Where the Sun Don't Shine. We're going to kick it off by raining on the Yankees in Jazz Chisholm Parade.
I don't know what the rule is if I went to first base first and threw it back to second if it's still an out. Is it still a double play? I don't know.
He's not confused on it. I think that's his, kind of that default answer when he's got guys in front of him or whatever.
When he says, I don't know the rule, and Grissom explained it, you think he did know, you think he does know the rule?
I think he knows the rule, yes.
See, I don't think so. And honestly, that response from Aaron Boone makes me sick. And I have always consistently, ever since the Yankees brought Jazz to the team, I defend Jazz. I will always defend Jazz Chisholm. I like his energy, his moxie, his toughness. I like a good old-fashioned ass kicker on the diamond, in the clubhouse, someone who takes accountability, simultaneously keeps it loose over the course of 162 games. I will always defend Jazz, always. That was indefensible. If my 10-year-old son Theo and his Little League team did that hot garbage in the Trop in Tampa, I'd be annoyed at the kids. And I'm not that kind of Little League dad. That is insane. Yankees, by the way, have now lost 5 straight. Losing in Tampa is just unacceptable. And by the way, that ballpark is atrocious. Someone should burn the Trop to the ground. Obviously, figuratively, but also literally, too, when nobody's in there. The fact that the Rays have to play in that garbage home is just disgusting. And honestly, the fact that they lost in Tampa bothers me, too, because, I'm going to go there. Every once in a while, it's okay to ask, what would happen if George was alive? And if you remember, there were 3 teams, in no particular order, that the Yankees could not lose against when George was alive. Couldn't lose to the Red Sox, the Mets, or the Tampa Rays, because he lived in Tampa, Yankees facilities in Tampa, and he wanted to go to his favorite Italian restaurant and not be bothered by Rays fans. So you get swept and you have 3 leads and you blow all of them on Saturday, and you can't hit and you have no fundamentals, and Aaron Boone doesn't know when to pinch hit. And if I have to look at Ryan McMahon one more time, it's unreal. And that inning when Jazz didn't know what was going on, that's a vintage Aaron Boone loss where there's no fundamentals, there's no field, there's no clue. And you see the New York Yankees give up a lead after Caballero got it done in the top of the extra inning frame in the 10th. They give up the lead, and then they ultimately blow and the ball doesn't even get out of the infield. Only the Yankees, man. That's unreal. Remember when I was saying consistently on Schein Time that the Yankees led the league in fun? Brutal. Absolutely brutal. That's not fun. And the pitching's been great. And they can't back up these pitchers and find ways to win. I didn't go nuts here. I didn't go nuts when you take a look at what transpired with the Yankees against the Ace. I'm going to go nuts now. And these offensive numbers you see on the screen right here, these offensive numbers are offensive, as bad as it gets. So if you're a Yankee fan like me, I mean, this is disturbing. It's frustrating, and I hate to say it from an Aaron Boone perspective. Bad fundies, bad offense, lack of situational awareness and hitting. It's just par for the course. This is why I would have fired Aaron Boone a long time ago. Remember when I said Yankees lead the league in fun? And again, I'm not backing off of any Yankee prediction, winning the division, going to the World Series, but there are some guys on this team that I don't want to see again. I was already annoyed when Brian Cashman talked to the media on Friday and said, yeah, the plan is for Anthony Volpe when he's healthy to be back at shortstop. Oh, good. Crazy. Clueless. I mean, sheer insanity. Speaking of mind-blowing New York middle infield play, Francisco Lindor has been killing the Mets in the field and at the plate, and even manager Carlos Mendoza at a loss for words.
It's weird because this is that's not him. It's hard to explain, and he'll be the first one that he'll tell you that he's got to be better. But yeah, never seen that. Some of those plays that he's just out of position at times.
Well, this is a problem because Lindor is historically an atrocious starter. We all know that. But now he's officially not even in the game mentally. And think about all the rants that we've had, right? You know, in terms of not knowing the outs in the first inning of a baseball game against St. Louis and getting picked off in the same game. Friday night was a mess. What happened with Marcus Semien? Poor Marcus. I mean, my goodness, it's a ground ball, should have been a double play, and Lindor's trying to make a play and doesn't get to the bag and they can't turn two. I mean, Francisco Lindor has no idea what the hell is going on. So the batting average is sickly. The fundamentals are even worse. You know, it's just every single moment he keeps doing something that makes you say his head is not in the game. I mean, the fact that it's approaching tax day and he has as many homers and RBI as I do, that's a problem. That is a problem. So, honestly, this is a complete and utter disgrace, the way he's going about it. And look, we don't do rumors and innuendo, but there's been enough conversation here where we have on Schein Time showed the handshake or lack thereof with regards to Lindor and Juan Soto. We've shown that, right? All the conversation that's been out there that has been debunked by reporters, right? You know, John Heyman has written about this in the Post. You know, did Lindor and Nimmo not get along? Did he want Nimmo out off the team? Who knows? Who cares? But I'll tell you what needs to happen. The productivity and the focus and getting your head out of your derriere, you know, that needs to be a thing. Having your head where the sun don't shine is not going to help things if you're Francisco Lindor. So you want to start off slow? That's one thing. A lot of ball players hit 188s during a 2-week stretch. You're not going to go nuts. And I've always been on the field a monster fan of Francisco Lindor. But if you're going to hit 188 with 0 homers, 0 RBI, and you don't know what the hell you're doing in the field, Friday night was an embarrassment. Yesterday was an embarrassment. There are 5 plays that have made no sense from a Lindor perspective. Mendoza doesn't even have the words. And I at least give Mendoza credit versus Boone. It's not like he's absolving blame. He just can't fathom what the hell is going on. So that's about as problematic as it gets. Let's lighten the mood with some Shine on Baseball, and we're shining a light on Rangers ace, the former Met Jacob deGrom, who talked about battling the great Shohei Ohtani and being forced to walk him late in the game.
I wanted to face him there, honestly. You know, like I said, he got me the first at bat. I walked him on the second at bat, and then, you know, once I fell behind, I was like, please don't walk him, and then they did. So, you know, that's the goal. You want to compete against the best. He's a great hitter, and like I said, he got me the first bat, and I wanted a chance to try to go out there and redeem myself. But, you know, we put him on, and, you know, that was ultimately Skip's decision. But, you know, he's the manager and was able to get out of that inning.
Man, I just love Jacob deGrom, and I think the world of him as a pitcher. And every time he pitches great, it makes me feel wonderful. Seriously. Because there was a period of time, and we're talking to New Yorkers and to baseball fans nationwide, where Jacob deGrom was as dominant a pitcher and athlete in sports. There is a period of time where every single pitch he threw for the Mets, it was must-see TV. Obviously, the injuries, goes to Texas, gets the ring, even when he wasn't healthy. And watching Jake pitch, I feel so great. And I obviously want to see him ultimately go to Cooperstown. Like, that's where I want to see him healthy enough to win, get back to the postseason, and reestablish his dominance on a consistent basis. Last year, he was fantastic, and I thought that was pretty great. By the way, I love what he had to say about what transpired with Ohtani. Ohtani hit a homer yesterday. Ohtani hit a homer on Saturday. Ohtani's unbelievable. I mean, this guy is a freak. He's unbelievable to watch. He's special. He's sensational. And honestly, I can't get enough when you watch Ohtani do his thing. Dodgers take 2 of 3 from the Texas Rangers. But deGrom was magnificent when you take a look at what he was able to do. Then you take a look, and we're allowed to have this conversation if you're a Mets fan. Brandon Nimmo, a couple of homers. And again, the Semien for Nimmo deal was a no-brainer. You make that deal 10 out of 10 times. You know, they needed to change up the core. Semien is terrific in terms of his defense, just won a Gold Glove. Obviously, he's been a terrific bat as well. They needed to mix things up, but man, every time you see deGrom and you see Nimmo do their thing, if you're a Mets fan, you kind of shake your head. Rangers are legit. Evan Carter hit his second home run of the season. I think Texas has a golden opportunity here to win the West in the American League. Seattle was able to get right over the weekend. That was obviously great. They got a 4th game against the Houston Astros today. Rye, New York native George Kirby is going to be on the bump for the Seattle Mariners. Very excited what the Mariners were able to do, but excited for the Rangers and what they were able to do yesterday to salvage a game in Los Angeles. To the NFL, where the Eagles made a trade with the Packers for Dontavian Wicks. So what does this mean for A.J. Brown's future in Philly? Let's check in with A.J. and see how concerned he is at the moment.
Got your plants?
Yes, I do.
Show them the pots you picked out.
Yeah.
I mean, I like a good plant, right? You know, plants make you happy. They're therapeutic. You know, inside, outside. I mean, I get it. There's a lot of drama going on with the Philadelphia Eagles and A.J. Brown and will he go, will he not go? So before he plants his roots in Philly, long-term, big picture, he's going to buy a plants. So I think the Wicks deal was terrific for Philly in isolation. Let's start there, right? They give up a couple of late picks, one this year, one next year. Wicks is a really solid player, knows the new offensive coordinator, Sean Mannion. But yes, I do think from a Philly standpoint, this is kind of one of those where you're like, all right, let's take a look. Let's take a look at what this means. Let's take a look at, you know, they had Hollywood Brown. Are they prepping for life in Philly without A.J. Brown? Now, I still think here, and Wicks is a good player, right? I'm not going to turn him into a great player or more than what he is in any way, shape, or form. But I still think that A.J. Brown is done in Philly. That's the mentality. Now, Howie Roseman's a brilliant GM. He's not going to just give him away. The goal in Philly every single year is to win a championship, and we could debate if that's right, wrong, or indifferent, right, when you look at it. But I think that for Philadelphia, I don't know how A.J. Brown stays. I mean, he would clearly rather shop for plants than play with Jalen Hurts, and I don't necessarily blame him, right? They got a new offensive coordinator. Nick Sirianni is not necessarily great in terms of being buttoned up as an in-game coach, and we'd rather mean mug fans and, you know, get everybody back on the same page. I still think New England makes the most sense. I know cap-wise, it makes sense financially for Philly to wait post-June 1, but that's usually not Howie Roseman's mentality. And I want to go back to the original premise of their goal this year is to win a championship. they're not thinking the way we're thinking. They think they're going to win the division and have the ability to win 2, 3, 4 games in the playoffs. That's Howie Roseman. That's who he is. That's what he does. So you take a look at Howie Roseman. I think there's more of a percent chance that he would trade and take the cap hit, and it's a lot. Take the cap hit and make the trade day of the draft, before the draft, trade him to New England. I think it makes sense. A.J. Brown, Mike Vrabel, they were together, obviously, in Tennessee. Makes a lot. It's an area of need without question for Drake May and company. I still think that's where he ends up. Pick 31 goes to Philly, and then Wicks helps fill the void. By the way, if you're a Packers fan, I'm not going to turn Wicks into more than what he is. I think he's a good player. You can make the case he's the 4th best receiver, was the 4th best receiver on Green Bay. But where are the Packers getting better? We could talk about the Micah injury. We could talk about Jordan Love, who, plays his worst when it matters the most. I'm not a Jordan Love believer or fan in any way, shape, or form. I've been ahead of the curve on that, and I've been right at every single step. I love Matt LaFleur, but compare this roster to Chicago, the Bears are better. Compare the roster to Minnesota. I think Kyler Murray is going to help the Minnesota Vikings. Detroit, will they bounce back? I still don't love the offensive coordinator situation. And it's so early. And I mean that because we haven't even hit the draft yet. It's 10 days away. But I think what we're looking at right now, the Packers are not making the playoffs, and they are the 3rd or 4th best team when you look at the highly competitive NFC North. Staying in the NFL, we mentioned it, 10 days away from the NFL draft. From here till draft night, we're going to hit a draft hot take each and every day until the names get called for real. Today, my guy, ESPN superstar, Peter Schrager is going to help us out with a hot topic. Where does Ty Simpson go?
The 2 teams that make the most sense are the Jets and the Cardinals. Ty Simpson's not going 2. He's not going 3. I don't think he's going 16 to the Jets. Those 2 teams have picks at 33 and 34. Do they maybe move up a couple spots to ensure they get him for a 5th year and they get him at the end of the first round? Fine. But at that point, we're kind of picking hairs at that one and saying, all right, well, if he goes 27 or 29 instead of 33 or 34 or 35, what's the difference?
My guy, Peter Schrager, bring in the fire. I love Peter. He's my guy. And Pat McAfee, outstanding. That, of course, courtesy of Pat and the boys and his outstanding show on ESPN. I'm going to give you a piping hot take to the draft. I've already told you I would never take Simpson in the first round. In no universe. I take Garrett Nussmeier over Ty Simpson. Nussmeier was hurt last year. I thought he was going to be terrific at LSU this past season. That was not the case because of injury, and obviously, coaching with Brian Kelly, that was a problem as well. I think Nussmeier is going to be a legit solid backup quarterback with the opportunity in the right system to start. He can push the ball. Dad is a longtime NFL coach. I love his arm. I love his leadership. I love his accuracy. In a weak draft, I have Nussmeier as QB2, Ty Simpson 3. So for all the conversation about, well, should Ty Simpson go in round 1? Please. And I think Ty Simpson, talent-wise, is worthy of being a day 2 selection. Don't misinterpret. I'm not just throwing random shade. But if I needed a backup quarterback who can be a solid starter, I'll give you a team. The Philadelphia Eagles. If Nussmeier is there in round number 3, would I take him? Absolutely. I think that would be a terrific, terrific pick. So I think Nussmeier could end up being a steal in the draft. Ty Simpson, absolutely, positively not. Let's finish strong.
How about a few legends?
I think Malkin was over at his place last night.
He was, but that's right.
Kids, yeah.
Taking it all in.
Unreal.
Tanger gets
Letang in there as well.
Oh, baby, I got to tell you, the fact that you had Ovechkin and Crosby for the 100th time meeting yesterday, that was awesome. That was absolutely, positively sensational. I just love everything about it. And look, I've got a take, and I'm just warning you, spoiler alert, there are going to be people who are not going to like this, but I will fight you forever. Ovechkin over Crosby. That's right. Last time I checked, scoring goals kind of matters, right? And if Ovechkin was on a team with a better coach and owner and general manager, better direction, if he was on the Penguins for all those years, Ovechkin would have as many cups as Crosby. Do not misinterpret. I am not saying this throwing any shade at Sid the Kid. I think Crosby is phenomenal. I think he's an all-time winner, all-time leader, 3 Stanley Cups. What he does and every phase of being a dominant hockey player, I think is incredible. But I will always take Ovechkin. I do love the fact that they're always going to be linked, not just by my take, but again, they're both wily veterans. And that scene at the end of the game was just awesome. Alexander Ovechkin could be his final regular season game against Crosby, 100th all-time meeting. And the fact that we saw Crosby, and I love the class here from Sid, the fact that he and the rest of his Penguins teammates were out on the ice and, they wanted to do an extended handshake line, and Ovi waved them off and said, no, I'm not done yet. By the way, you need a PhD in fandom to ultimately figure out the NHL postseason. I would tell you it, but A, I don't care. B, you don't either. C, it's utterly ridiculous unless your name is Bettman Kamagari. It's, the dumbest thing of all time. There is a shot that we can get Pittsburgh and we can get Washington matched up in the postseason, which would be all sorts of cool if you're a fan of hockey or sports in general. So I just think it's ridiculously awesome to have Ovechkin and Crosby linked again. Game number 100 that they played against each other. And yes, I would love. I'm not giving you the possibilities because, frankly, I don't care. And it's just so convoluted. The NHL postseason is as how they organize it and structure it and how they match up the teams, as dopey as it gets. If it happens, it'll be great. If it doesn't, we'll react accordingly. What are we betting? What are we watching tonight? How about the Mets and the Dodgers? How about the Dodgers on the run line? David Peterson, who's akin to batting practice, he's on the bump tonight for the Mets, and that means the Dodgers will ultimately win by at least a couple of runs. That's a show. If you missed any portion of the show, just do what I do. Watch the show over and over and over again. Just go to the New York Post Sports YouTube page, California Post Sports YouTube page, and search Schein Time. We'll see you tomorrow, 2 Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on Schein Time.